Welcome everybody to Blue Bear Quilt Studios for another Facebook Live. Today we're a part of the Designer's Tips and Techniques, and we're going to be talking about orphan blocks and applique. Do you have any of those orphan blocks at home? I'll bet you do. I have a ton of them. There's all kinds of orphan blocks. And today we're going to talk about what to do with these blocks, and I'm going to show you some ideas of what you can do with them. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up, like it, heart it, share it, and be sure to say hello and where you're from. So one of the things you can do with orphan blocks is you could make a bag. So this one is a pineapple block, which is kind of a complicated block to sew. You'll notice that there's a lot of little pieces and a lot of sewing. So part of the reasons why we have orphan blocks is that sometimes when we start a project, it's a little bit harder than we thought it was, or maybe we don't like the project, or maybe we don't like the fabrics that we chose. There can be a variety of reasons why we might not finish a quilt and we end up with these orphan blocks, but making a bag is a really good use for them. Another good use would be making a placemat. And this happens to be a quilt in a day pattern for the leaf and making the turkey, and then I set it on point and turned it into a placemat. Now, Blue Bear has something that he wants to show you that's not related to the topic, but he's going to show you something. Blue Bear, what is that? Blue Bear. You can say hi to your friends whenever you want, but right now this is my show. This is my show, Blue Bear. What's that? Blue Bear says that if you go and like his Instagram page and follow him and make comments, he might say hello to you in a future video. Oh, Blue Bear, let's show what you were intended to show. All right, so he is working on a little bag. And this bag is made with Cocoa Chic, which is his fabric line, with QT Fabrics. And it's fabric that's inspired from the 1920s. And this happens to be what we call like a cheater fabric. It looks like all of those little pieces were sewn together by Blue Bear, but actually it's one solid piece of fabric. And then what he did was he actually quilted on top of it before he made the bag. And so he's working on a pattern to share with you for making this cute little bag. So now what we are going to talk about today is taking those orphan blocks and turning them into pillow covers. And so on our website we have a pattern for the Wonky Heart pillow, and it actually makes this block. And then on the back, we take one part of the block and use it as like a little orphan block to put on the back of the pillow. And so the pattern that's on our website shows you both how to make this block and how to make the pillow. So if you were just interested in doing something with a 12-inch block, you can also use the pattern to put any 12-inch block in here to make a pillow. And then on the back you can decide whether you want to put another orphan block or have a solid piece back here. Now for the pattern, if you want to make this actual block with the Wonky Heart, that actually uses the AccuQuilt Wonky Heart die. And then another pillow that I made with an orphan block, this one is the Hattie's Choice block. It's actually smaller than 12.5 inches. It's probably about a 9-inch block, and I added some extra fabric around it to make it a 12.5-inch unfinished block, which I then was able to put into the pillow pattern. And then for this particular one, I put the plain back on it, so it doesn't have an orphan block on the back. So an AccuQuilt die that makes making that block a lot easier is the Hattie's Choice. And so you could choose to use this die in order to cut out your pieces to make the Hattie's Choice. And another thing I did for this particular one to get this ready for making the pillow was I actually quilted it before I put it together for the pillow. So what I did was I took a piece of nice thick batting and put it behind my block, And then with my walking foot, I just started stitching around the lines. And so I actually was able to quilt this before I started making the pillow block. Now I'd also like to show you a couple quilts that involve these blocks, and also since we're going to be talking about applique. The first one is one of our patterns called Where Are You? And it's called that because there's a little sheep down here in the corner, and he's calling out to the other ones saying, "Where are you?" The next applique quilt is called Dancing Bears. And it has all of these cute little bears that are dancing around the stars. There you can see a close-up of one of the bears. And then this is our Fit for a King pattern that's available on our website, and it's also using the Hattie's Choice die that we used in that pillow. The quilt that's behind me is called 50s Diner, and it was featured in McCall's Quilting May-June 2020. This is what the cover of the magazine looks like. And then on the table here we have Rhythm of the Stars, which is another pattern on our website. You may not be able to see that. And then hanging here we have our braided table runner that uses the Cocoa Chic fabric. And over there on the quilt rack we have Canoe Crossing, which was featured in Love of Quilting magazine last fall. So the block that we're actually going to turn into a pillow today is called Sun Boo Netsu, and you will see why she's called that in just a little bit. But this block is actually available as a free download on my website when you sign up for our newsletter. And we are participating in a program that's called Quilt Block Mania, and that's been going on for a couple months. And this month in September, the theme is Halloween. So we took a popular block, Sunbonnet Sue, and made her a little bit scarier with a Halloween block. So now I'm going to show you the fabrics. It's actually made with Cocoa Chic fabrics. And the actual block part that you'll be downloading is just the part that's on the cream with Sunbonnet Sue and the pumpkin on it. The purple borders are used to make the pillow pattern. And so be sure to go on my blog and check out all of the other designers that are participating in this Quilt Block Mania as well. So I'm sure you all have a bunch of pillows. This one happens to be a 16-inch pillow that you look at it and go, what the heck was I thinking when I bought that? Well, by incorporating some of your orphan blocks and turning them into a pillow cover, you can make a nice fall decoration for your home. So here's how we go about making this block. So we have a 12.5-inch cream square to begin with. That's our background fabric. And then we have to cut out all of the different parts of the applique pieces that are in the pattern, and they are mirror image, so that when you cut them out on the wrong side of the fabric, they will be oriented the correct direction when you put them on the background fabric. So what I did was I cut out the pumpkin from the pattern, and then what I would do is I would cut out a piece of fabric that's in the orange color, the same size as this pumpkin square. Then I would take and use a fusible webbing such as Heat and Bond. It has this is Heat and Bond Light. It has paper on one side and kind of a nubby, plasticky fusing on the back. And so then I would cut that out to be slightly smaller than the square. And I would take and fuse that square onto the wrong side of the pumpkin fabric. Then once that's been done, I would take a glue stick or a little bit of school glue, and I would glue this template on top of that. And then with the scissors, I would cut right on the line and cut out the applique shapes. Now on the back is going to be the pumpkin with the right side of the fabric showing. and then these two pieces of paper are on the wrong side. So now we have to remove the paper and expose the fusible stuff. And so the way you do that normally is there wouldn't be this on there, but you can remove both at the same time. So you sometimes have to score the heat and bond paper. So you take a pin and just score it, and then you're able to peel this off the back of the fabric, and you'll see that there's kind of a plastic fusible substance on the back of your fabric. So you're going to do that with all of your pieces in the appropriate colors. Then what you need to look at next is what's called your placement diagram. And I hope you can see these lines because they're kind of fine, but you can see that it shows where all the different parts go. And now I'm going to show you on the actual block because it'll be easier, like how you lay them out. So you would start by laying out the foot at the bottom first, then you would place the dress over that. Then you would place the stem up here and then place the pumpkin on top of the stem, the face on top of the pumpkin, the hand on top of the pumpkin. Then you would place the arm on top of the hand, the hat on top of the dress, and the ribbon on top of the hat. Once you have all of those pieces fused in place, or set in place, then you're going to take your iron and fuse them all down. You just take your iron and you hold it on there and it fuses all the pieces. Now these pieces have raw edges and we don't want them to fray like if you're ever going to wash this. So what we do is we take and we do what's called machine embroidery, and we're going to do a blanket stitch around this. And when I hold it up close, you can see a little bit on the orange or the yellow that it's kind of a fine stitch close together, very neat. And then if I show you on the back, it looks just as neat on the back. So how do I accomplish that? How do I accomplish good machine embroidery with a blanket stitch? Well, there's a couple tips that will really help you. One is you need a good firm stabilizer. And I'm not sure what brand this is, but it's like a real thick, nice, firm paper. And so you tear off a size that's the size of your block and you put it behind, and you actually blanket stitch on top of your block, which is on top of this paper, and this keeps your background from bunching up as you're trying to do the blanket stitch. And then once you're all done going around blanket stitching that paper tears off the back, so you remove all of it. And then what's also helpful is having a real fine embroidery thread. This one is called Finishing Touch, and it is a 60 weight polyester embroidery thread. Now the way the numbers work on thread is the higher the number, the thinner the thread. So your normal thread is like a 50 weight, so this is a 60 weight, so it's much thinner and fine, and it gives those fine stitches on the back which make it easier to pull that paper off of the back. So then once we have all of that done, in order to create the pillow, I took and I added a 2.5 inch strip on each side and then cut it even with the block, and then I added a 2.5 inch strip on the top and a 2.5 inch strip on the bottom, and that makes our pillow front. Then part of the reason why she's called Sunbunetsu is that she has a ghost on the back. And now I could have actually appliqued the ghost onto a piece of fabric that would be this size, but because I was highlighting the pattern that makes this orphan block on the back, I wanted to do it the same way. So this is actually a 6.5 inch unfinished square that's pieced in there. And so the way I accomplished that was I used a bigger piece of fabric. I used a 7 inch piece of fabric, and then appliqued and blanket stitched my ghost onto that square, and then I had to make it the 6.5 inch size. And the way I did that was by using the Stripology squared mini ruler. And when I hold this on there, you can see that it has a center area, which I place the center over the ghost, and then there are white lines going around there, and those top white lines are actually 6.5 inches. So you cut on the left and right side, you rotate your block, 90 degrees, and then you cut the other side, and that's how you'd end up getting a nice centered 6.5-inch orphan ghost block. And where I got the ghost from was an AccuQuilt die that's called Halloween Medley. So once we have our ghost orphan block, then we had to fill out the rest of this by putting a piece on this side and on the right side. That's 5.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So that makes this center strip 16.5 inches. And the pillow front also measured 16.5 inches. Then at the top I added a strip that was 3.5 by 16.5, and on the bottom I added one that was 3.5 by 16.5. And then on the bottom I took on the back and folded it down 1/4 inch, and then another 1/4 inch, and then top stitched along that so that it would make a nice finished edge. So then what you do is you're going to put with the ghost up, but right sides together. So we have the right side of the pillow facing up and the right side of the ghost facing down. We line up these raw edges, and we have the finished edge down here towards the middle of the pillow. So we take and we line up these unfinished edges at the top like this, and the finished edge is in the middle of the pillow. And then we need one more piece to complete our pillow top, and this piece is 9 inches by 16.5. And again, I folded it 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch, and then top stitched it. And now this time we're going to go right side facing right side, but we're going to put the top stitched one towards the middle of the pillow. So now it's up towards the middle, and the raw edges are again aligned down here on the bottom. And then once you have that all lined up like that, you basically take and do a 1/4 inch seam all the way around your pillow. And then once that's done, you can turn it right side out, and you've got a pillow top. So coming up next in the tips and techniques is Catherine LeBlanc at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And she is with Dragonflies Quilting Design Studio, and she's in Massachusetts. And she is the designer that started another block hop that we're participating in that's called Around the Block US Tour. And what that is free 6-inch blocks where every week there's a new one for 52 weeks. So it's going to include all 50 states and Puerto Rico. And there have been some fantastic blocks so far. This program just got started towards the end of August, so you haven't missed too many weeks. And every week there's a new block, and our block will be in June of next year, 2021, and we're going to be representing the state of Arkansas. So I hope you'll stay tuned to watch Catherine up next. I hope you've enjoyed what we talked about today of taking an orphan block and turning it into a pillow top. And be sure to like this video and share it with your friends, and take Blue Bear's suggestion and go over and like his Instagram, and maybe he'll say hi to you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.